Alright, so we have talked about what anthropology is, what the four subfields are, how anthropology was developed, what all those subfields have in common, and things like that. So as we wrap up, I just want to briefly mention to you how anthropologists know what they know. Okay, so we've said that anthropology can cover a lot of different fields and can provide a lot of insight into humanity, human behavior, culture, cultural practices, and cultural knowledge, and these sorts of things. But how is that? Okay, and we're going to do an entire section on methods, so don't feel bogged down or feel like you need to know the methods automatically right now. We'll do an entire section on that, but I just wanted to mention it so it's just as we continue through the semester, you're thinking about it. And as you read in your texts and things like that, you're thinking about the methods and how do we actually know these things. We can make these claims, but if they're not scientifically found out or discovered or understood, then they don't really mean much in Western academia, right? So anthropologists use a variety of methods. Okay, these are the systematic strategies for collecting and analyzing data. These do include the scientific method. So sometimes people will say that anthropology or social sciences aren't really science and that they shouldn't get the term science attached to their names. Anthropologists will disagree with you, as will most social scientists. We do use the scientific method. We have hypotheses, and we collect data systematically to develop these hypotheses, and then we test them, whether that's by observing another culture, or sometimes anthropologists will do test them and seem more traditionally scientific. But we do use the scientific method. And these theories, like the theory of gravity, aren't guesses. These are scientific theories that have been tested and supported by data and have been rigorously tested. Okay. In addition to qualitative methods, we also use quantitative methods. So the qualitative are the detailed descriptions. Quantitative is numerical data. Okay, so we can count and measure some things. So mathematics, statistical models. I use computer modeling in my research, which is not really quantitative, not really qualitative. It's a different kind of method. So anthropologists utilize a variety of methods. So qualitative method is where we're focusing mostly. So anthropology is the most qualitative of the social sciences. Our data isn't usually hard numbers and facts. Usually it's stories, it's family history, it's knowledge, it's information like that. So we are very qualitative. Okay? And we do that to produce these in-depth, detailed descriptions of social behaviors, cultural beliefs, and cultural knowledge. Okay, and two of the main methods we'll talk about, and you're actually going to use the ethnographic method a little bit. You're going to do a piece of it. Are ethnographic methods and comparative methods. So the ethnographic method is prolonged, intensive observation of a society and participation in the life of the community. It's the hallmark of cultural anthropology. This is what cultural anthropology was built on. And the comparative method lets us compare, as it would suggest, different cultures, okay, two or more cultures or societies, and just looking at the similarities, differences, the variation and multiplicity within. Okay, so we'll talk a lot more about methods as we move forward, and like I said, you're going to be doing some participant observation, which is a piece of the ethnographic method. Okay. So how do we use anthropology? And we're going to talk more about this next week, but applied anthropology, the perspective your book takes, that is anthropological research that is used to serve an organization's needs. Within that, some people break this down into practicing anthropology. So this is, you're not just performing research, but you're designing, implementing, and managing some organization, some process or product. This is the type of stuff I'd like to use anthropology for. Okay? Not necessarily for developing broad theories of human behavior or culture, but for using the methods and thought processes that we practice in anthropology to implement conservation and to work with local communities to put together mutually beneficial conservation programs, stuff that works for their culture and within their culture and for the environment and animals involved, working as a go-between between conservation organizations and the local culture. So this is something anthropology can help us do. And so next week we'll talk, as we talk about culture, we'll talk about applied anthropology, and that's chapter 3 in your textbook. So make sure you are reading that. If you ever hear of the 5th subfield, okay, so in addition to cultural anthropology, biological anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and archaeology, you'll hear people say the 5th subfield. That is applied anthropology. So if you ever hear someone say the 5th subfield, or you're wondering what that is applied anthropology. And then I wanted to mention just some ethical issues we come across as anthropologists, often working with disadvantaged people, if you're working with a small indigenous group of people, or even if you're studying, let's say, crack dealers in Harlem, Spanish Harlem, which is a really great ethnography I might have you all read. Okay, you're working with kind of disadvantaged people, people who don't have as much political or social power, and so anthropologists are in these situations. We're gathering a lot of sensitive information, so really anthropologists are ethically obligated not to just do no harm, but then also to do some good as well. So this is where applied anthropology can really come in, and action anthropology, which we'll talk about, and just social reform, using anthropology for the good of the people you're working with. Okay, so the primary responsibility of an anthropologist is to the people, species, or artifacts they study. So there's a lot of conflicting obligations. So if you have people sponsoring your research, if you have grant funding, if you have a university, if you have these sorts of things, okay, you might have a lot of different conflicting messages that you're getting. And so it's important to balance those and to remember that your obligation is ultimate to the people and species and artifacts that you are studying. Okay, so that is pretty much wrapping up our first guided learning activity. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you got some good information out of it. Be sure to complete all of those questions. This is a graded course element. And then make sure you are reading the text. Once you've done both of those things, go complete that reading quiz. That will allow you to access the discussion board where you can post for this week another required course element. So if you have any questions at all, if you're confused about any of this information, shoot me an email, let me know, and we can figure it out and we can get you back on the right track. All right? We'll see you all next week.